Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Rich Woman Rising podcast. I'm your host, Eloise Tomkins, and I love to help you regulate your nervous system so that you can make more money, hold more money, and let go of the fear. And today I am so excited that I am joined with Phoebe Walpole. And I don't think I've said your surname correctly, so I'm going to get you to help me say that again shortly. I,
It's
I,
fine.
I was asking how to say that, and I'm like, crap, I've forgotten how to say it. But Phoebe is a business and mindset coach, and she loves to help women to make money by being themselves. And she does that through helping them really activate their leadership and step into spicy content online, which I think is really cool because I think it can be really hard for women to step into being themselves. And one of the reasons that I invited Phoebe on is because we have this shared view, I guess, of authenticity and helping women to step into their most confident selves. But also, above and beyond that, one of the reasons that I did want to also have Phoebe on the show is that, and we're talking about this off air, money, we don't always come from money, but we get to create our financial future and the way that we want to live our lives. And Phoebe is a really great example of that. So I really want to be able to have her share her story so that we can learn that our past doesn't always define us. So Phoebe, I'm going to leave it to you just for a second to get you to tell us a little bit about yourself and to correct me on how I say your last name again.
Hi, everybody. I'm Phoebe Walpole. It's actually my new last name as well because I just got married and inherited it. So I'm not even used to saying it either. But yeah, I'm a business and mindset coach. I really love to help women with a lot of like the basic strategy, like making sure that we're really running our business with strong foundations that are sustainable and scalable. I think often when women pop up online with big business dreams, they don't really know any of those things, and we kind of fluff around trying to get away without them. But I think that if we have these big dreams for making big money, then like the earlier we get into our foundations and actually lay them, the better, and things move faster. And then I'm just very
Mm,
passionate about the human side, like the female side of running a business, like all the emotions we have, all of the things that we have to move through, the fear of being seen, the fear of being too much, the judgment, all those sorts of things. Like most of the women who I work with are operating in fields where they are coaching or leading or holding space or supporting other women and
mm,
being strong in, I suppose, almost like calling people out on their bullshit, letting people know that you see when they're like playing smaller or not doing what they are meant for and what they say that they want. Like that's such powerful leadership and so important that we have those honest conversations and love ourselves enough to hear them and handle them. So helping women like really own that expression and own that power and leadership and authority and hold themselves to those standards as well just makes my little heart happy.
I love that so much. And yeah, we really do need that, don't we? Because I think that like it reminds me actually like posted something on LinkedIn recently that just absolutely blew up. Like I've had so many people comment and long story short, my neighbor upstairs, asshole man, came and knocked on my door at like 11 o'clock at night, telling me that my dog was too loud for barking too much. And I posted something to that effect on LinkedIn, and a woman commented on my post and was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry that your neighbor did that." And I was like, "I'm really grateful for the sentiment. However, not your job to apologize for a man that you don't even know." And she was like, "Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, thank you for calling me out on that." I'm like, "You are so welcome, my friend. You are so welcome." So I hear you on calling people out on things that sometimes we don't even have those, like we've got our own blind spots, right? And
And with love, like how you did
yeah,
it, you were like, this, I want this woman to see herself in her value and her power and know she's not, doesn't owe these apologies to anyone. Like you didn't call her out to be like, hey, lady, you're dumb. You called
mm,
her out to be like, hey, like I see you higher than this. And I know that you are better
mm,
than this and deserve better than this. And that's such a powerful, like, oh, it's just filled with love. Like there's no ickiness in it, all the things that we associate with it. Like people are going to think I'm mean, people are going to think I'm a bitch, people don't think that I don't like them or I'm going to upset them or whatever. It's like if it's just fueled by love and seeing people like the best that you can see them, like, oh, the best way to move and activate people.
100%. But I also think regulation comes into that, like being able to
Mm.
regulate your nervous system. Because if I can't regulate my nervous system, if she couldn't regulate her nervous system, that's where I think discrepancy, or not discrepancy, but that oh gosh, I've lost the word.
Misunderstandings and
Yeah, yeah.
triggers and everything.
Defensiveness. And I guess
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, leading into that, like, because I see this version of you right now as somebody who does have that, like, authentic leadership, who is able to lovingly call people out when they need to be. Has it always been that way for you, or is that something that you had to build up to?
I definitely feel like in the outside world, in my content, I really had to build into it. I realized like quite early in my coaching experiences, and really I've been a coach for a long time before this business. Like I
Mm,
ran a gym for many years and was a personal trainer before that. So I've been helping people in that way for a long time. And I've
mm,
always like been quite direct and honest with them. But I always felt like it was just so cool that I had this relationship with people where they felt safe enough and loved by me that I could say almost anything to them that was honest and sometimes painful and sometimes like the things you didn't want to hear. And they were able to just receive it because of, now I understand like the co-regulation of that relationship, the safety that we built, the tools that we'd already kind of worked together on in regulating nervous systems and feeling safe in these places and believing in yourself enough that you can hear that kind of feedback and know that there's no negativity behind it. I suppose, like, if someone on the street pops out and says, hey, your business is shit and your content sucks, like, well, like, I'm probably going to be on the defense. But if my coach, who I'm safe with and I know believes in me so deeply and has such a huge heart and always moves with like my best interests and all that sort
mm,
of stuff, when she says it to me, like I can just receive that with such an open heart and just reflect on myself and truly like take that feedback and grow, as opposed to it being anything negative. And so I have had to grow into that in my online presence and in my content to feel confident that I can do that and that I can hold that position where through my messaging I'm able to both create that safety and that evidence of love. And like, I would never say this to you to hurt you. I'm saying this because I just see your power. I see how much more's in you. I see how
mm,
beautiful it is. I see how good it is. I see how good you are at what you do. And so I've actually feel like now I've started to really nail this messaging where I'm able to deliver hard messages sometimes with so much love that even from the other side of the screen, people are able to receive it. And I know not everyone is, not everyone's ready. And when something goes viral or something like that, people don't know your heart. They don't know where you're
yeah.
coming from. They haven't felt that love. They haven't felt that safety. Like there is that risk of like we're going to trigger things in them, but it's also like something I've had to grow into, is understanding that that's not my responsibility, and me watering that down or making that less is actually not helping anyone. It's just in some ways like just letting people stay in their triggers and say, oh, that's good enough. Like it's your fault that I'm triggered, instead of what in me is causing this feeling and experience.
Hmm. I love that. And that's so something that I certainly do a lot with my clients as well, like what's mine, what's theirs. And
Mm.
I think like when it comes to money as well, like it's something that I see a lot, particularly with women. And I don't know how your experience of this is, but when we have these big dreams, these big money goals, these big life goals, and then we think, oh my gosh, but what are other people going to think? Like it's
Mhm.
wild. But I feel like we could dive into like massive rabbit holes. But I really want to come back to, I guess, your money story. Like, where did your money story begin? Like, if you kind of had to look back, what was little Phoebe? What was it like for little Phoebe? And how did you get to where you are today?
Oh my gosh, what a ride from little Phoebe.
That's a big question, I know.
Yeah, so my parents separated when I was quite young, when I was like 2 years old, and there was lots of rough parts about my childhood. The beauty is sometimes that you're a kid and you don't totally remember how wild it is. It's almost like sometimes as an adult, I'm like reflecting on these memories, being like, that was crazy. Like you were not
Mm,
supposed to be in those situations. But as a kid, you're just still living your little life and it is what it is. That's what you
Mm,
know. So my mum had like a lot of drug problems when we were young. And so there was a long period of time where my dad took custody of us and we lived there. And like, it's your mum, like you love your mum no matter what. And we didn't
mm,
understand any of that situation at the time. So I'm sure that was like the hardest thing ever for my dad, because we were just like, mum, where's mum? We want to be with mum,
mm,
like that kind of thing. And my parents on that side, my dad and my stepmom, were just always trying to protect us and be like, everything's fine, but we just have to stay here. And we got to an age where finally, like, I don't know, my brother and I must have just been old enough and annoying enough that we were like, we want to live with mum, we want to live with mum. And my parents were like, fine, you can go. We'll be here if you want to come back, but you can go. And so I lived with my mum for like quite a long time. And in that situation, our money situation was just like, yeah, pretty horrendous. My mum didn't work. She had 4 kids in the house at that time, domestic abuse relationships, like just a lot of all the icky and classic
mm,
things that cause, a lot of money problems and typically are associated. So we lived a lot on like 2-minute noodles, a lot of Domino's pizza,
mm,
pizza vouchers, like all those things. And like, yeah, so young, it just was always the story of there's never enough money.
mm,
And money was so dramatic in our household. Like, just everything came back to money. Every situation, we couldn't drive to school because there wasn't enough petrol. We couldn't,
mm,
go here because we couldn't afford it. We can, just every single things felt like it came back to money. So it was almost like this obsession with money in the household, having none. And
mm,
then as I grew older, something that I really found in me, like this is something I've had to heal and integrate over my years, is like I became just very judgy of my mum. Looking back now, I'm
mm,
like, woman was in a crazy, difficult situation, doing her best, She could have done better, but she was doing her best with what she had. But I became very judgy of just like why don't we do something about this situation? Like
mm,
it doesn't seem that hard to me to
mm,
do something about this situation. And now like there's so much power in that side of me, and I've had to really integrate it to take out the icky judgy and the hyper masculine and control side and everything like that I grew, because during that time it was like then I really became the parent of our household. I was trying to
mm,
keep everyone together. I'm like numbing out feelings, all that type of stuff.
mm,
But I learned how to put my feelings away and just do what needed to be done. Like no matter how scary something was, no matter how much you might fail, no matter how much you might be
mm,
judged, whatever, if there's a way to make your life better, you fucking do it. Like that was the energy in me. And I kind of grew up with this like strange, honestly, like drive of probably this drive of being like, I just wanted to be so far away from that situation that
mm,
I very early on was like, I can make money, I can make a better situation for myself, and I always will. And so I just really like came out of school and stuff and was guns blazing, like, how do I make money? How do I get enough money? How do I get more money? Like I was quite obsessed with money still, like that
mm,
obsession was there. And there was this drive in me that was both very powerful and also very like icky
mm,
conditioning and convoluted with lots of toxic stuff too, of just like, yeah, like this drive to be successful, to have a totally different life to where my mum was and where we all were, and create all this success for myself. And so it made me very like, yeah, very go-getter, very action taker, very driven, very like top of my class, like,
mm,
all those kinds of things. And so I started making really good money really early. I always had like multiple jobs. I was always working hard, started businesses at like 18. I've been in business like ever since. But so lots of it was like, yeah, we kind of flipped the switch from having nothing to being obsessed with having everything. And
mm,
then over the years, I've had to like actually go through the trauma healing of like, okay, all of that drive is coming from this terror of
mm,
ever going back to that place, right? It's fueled by scarcity, fear, like not wanting to be judged and pathetic mess like I thought my mum was at the time.
Mm.
And, you know, wanting to be just like, it was almost like wanted to just prove everybody wrong, that like
Mm.
you're all so stupid. All you have to do is try harder or work harder or whatever like that. And so, yeah, over time, I like healed out of a lot of that, realized I probably hadn't felt an emotion for like 20 years and
Mm.
had to like come out of the avoidance and the like hyper independence and the push and the intensity and everything that I had associated with that, and really come back into like why I was doing it. A beautiful thing that I always had was like I always all of that drive to make more money also came with an equal drive of like to live a good life. Like
Mm.
it was always clear to me why we were striving for money. It wasn't just to have lots of money, it was to
Mm.
have a good life. So, I mean, I feel like that's a huge part of like how I became Best Life Phoebe. Like I was just obsessed with how do you make your life good? If you see something you don't like in it, you do something about it. Like that was just the way
Mm.
that I lived my life. And so, yeah, just over the next probably 10 years, I really was able to go through a lot more like healing around that and learn a lot more about like my scarcity and my wounds, my attachment styles, and all these things that I needed to go through to like release the negative pressure of it, like the scarcity pressure and the fear pressure and the like, what if it all falls apart and we go back there kind of pressure,
Mhm.
and let it just flow way more from the like the positive parts of it. The like you can create any life you want. Like you can, you know, you get to choose, you get to take action in that direction. You are resourceful, you are smart, you are strong, you have value, like you get to create anything you want and you're totally capable of that, totally resourceful in that way. So there was so much
Mm.
like beauty and strength and power in the way that I was looking at the world. It just was also attached to a lot of fear and a lot of scarcity, and judgment and just like a lot of icky wounding and stuff in there. And now, like, you know, I still have, that's probably like my go-to, right? Like my go-tos that I'm forever healing are like a little bit of avoidance pattern. That's my go-to. If things get a little bit too spicy in the world, I'll just dip out. Um, and like the scarcity, right? So it's like that still comes up for me sometimes, but it's just on such a different level.
Mm.
I doesn't feel like I'm fighting for my life every day to run from this past. It's more like I'm actually just, you know, working towards beautiful things in my life for the fun of it, for the joy of it, for the
Mm.
expansion, for the mission, for the like, yeah, the happiness, the love. Like there's not all the pressure attached of resting or of falling apart or needing to change my mind or anything like that. So that's a long version of my story.
I love it. I was like just absorbed, like, and I love that so much. And I find it so interesting having these conversations with people because when I hear them, and like I have to say, I feel so privileged in the work that I do that I get to speak to a lot of women. Obviously on the podcast, but in that one-on-one space as well, where we talk about things that often aren't spoken about,
Mhm.
which is why I love talking to people on the podcast because what I want is for women to kind of hear themselves in other people's stories and to go, oh my goodness, I can relate to that. Because when women hear these stories, they can go, oh, I'm not alone. And it's
Mhm.
really interesting though, because for a lot of people, it can feel really validating to know that they're not alone. But then for some people, point to myself, I'm like, nah, it doesn't matter that your story is similar. You don't get what it was like for me because my story is so different. And
Mhm.
I actually had to do a lot of healing around that. Side note. But I love that reflect or just the reflections in general and the childhood stuff because it really does. Like we generally underestimate how much stuff comes from childhood. I remember working with a client and I reckon we worked together for about 6 months before she turned around and said to me, Ellie, I was really skeptical when we first started working together about this inner child rubbish. She's like, but now, she's like, holy moly, I get it. And I can't believe how deep these patterns run and how much of what I'm doing today is because of old patterning. And but it took for, with that, like just time to kind of see and develop and
Mm,
understand. And then it was like just a light bulb, boom, and everything all made sense. And that's when, change really started to happen, because if you're not aware of it, you can't change. And often we try and focus on, well, I want to change something. But if we don't know why, it's hard to change.
mm,
And I also love, like one of the things you were talking about is that sense of fear and how that links to scarcity. And I think those two things, like fear and scarcity, have such a close relationship. What I was kind of curious about, though, is how you were able to pinpoint that you had a money story that needed to be, I don't want to use the word healed, but shifted or,
unraveled.
yeah, unraveled.
Yeah, it was like, to be honest, it took me a long time to really own that. I think because, one of the gifts that came out of all of that was this like kind of radical responsibility where like if I
Mm,
saw something in my life, I just did something about it in my life. Like and now, even now, like that's one of my greatest skills is teaching people that like sometimes like there's so much depth. There is trauma, there is subconscious like issues,
mm,
like there's all these things that we should pay attention to and should give love to and should give time to. But also sometimes it doesn't have to be that fucking deep. You see the thought, you choose something different. You see the action that's right for you. It's sticky, it's scary, you do it anyway. Like, I feel like there's so much power in that. And that's what I really learned through that time. But because of that, there was definitely a resistance in me of like, you know, almost this belief of like, well, I'm not holding trauma, right? Because I've
mm,
chosen differently. I've gone down this different path. Look at what I've created. It's so different, blah, blah, blah. So I think, yeah, I'm trying to think what really got me in there. I think it was honestly just like the business world, the coaching world. Like business is the best personal development ever, as we all know. Like as
mm.
soon as you start down that path, you can't unsee all your own shit, like it all starts coming up. So I think going into business so young just started to make me quite aware, and people in the business world use more of that language, right? Like,
Mm,
I would be like, oh, this is going to be my pricing, and like whoever I was kind of mentoring with, whether it was like a formal relationship or just someone around me, would be like, well, I think you're like, you're cutting yourself short, you've got limiting belief, or like, why do you think that should be the price? Like would start to
mm,
have those types of conversations with me. And so that started to like just bring out some of that depth of like, oh, like sometimes I do see limits there, or I am kind of nervous about that, or how come like
mm,
even though my bank account's always full, like I still freak out about this, or, I just
mm,
start to notice those little things. But probably, I don't know how long ago it was, probably like 5, 7 years ago, something like that. I really went down this path of like manifestation. And I previously had like hated all of that stuff. I like blocked out a lot of my spiritual side for a long time because my mum was so associated with that. And I'd be like, nah, it's none of that belief bullshit. It's
mm,
just do the work and make it happen, right? But like I felt the calling. I knew that there was that side to me. And as I started to like look into manifestation, it's all about like you want something, you go and you get it, and you ask the universe for it, and you take the action for it, and you get it. And I'm like, oh, that's what I do. Like, I love that. So I really went down that path, and that really cracked me open into like, understanding that we manifest what we believe, we manifest, what our nervous system is responding to, and things like that. So I started to look deeper into that kind of thing, and uncovered a lot more of that language and understanding about trauma and everything like that, where I was like, oh, okay, like these things are a lot more linked and probably a lot more stored in my body than I give credit to, because I just turn those little emotions off and carry on with my brain power. Like, so that really opened that up for me. And that was where like I really started to set, like I'd always set what felt like big goals, but I
Mm,
think they seemed big to other people. But to me, it was always where I was really convicted and confident. I wouldn't stretch myself. I might have been stretching people around me, but I was staying in my comfort zone. And
mm,
so once I started to tap into that, I started to get more comfortable stretching myself and saying, you know, that I think that was probably back then that I said I wanted to have $1 million year. And when I actually stretched myself, then all the beliefs and everything come up, right? When you're staying in your comfort zone, nothing really comes up to bother you. It seems like you can do it. There's no blocks, there's no issues. But when you actually
yeah.
ask for bigger and for more, now it seems very clear where, you know, quote unquote blockages might be, because now you suddenly hear all the stories in your head and all the doubts in your heart and the way that your heart beats really fucking fast thinking about it, or you know, you start
Mm.
wondering what people are going to think and all those sorts of things. So
And
stretching
then you
that
can,
goal, yeah.
but then you can track back. Well, not you,
Mm,
people in general, like that's exactly what happens. And then they go, oh, I'm feeling my heart racing. Oh, that's a sign
mm-hmm.
that I need to pull back. And it's like, no, that's just a sign. That's just a communication. It's telling you that you're scared.
Yes.
Just because you're scared, you get a choice as to whether you want to listen to that or not. Yeah, it doesn't feel
Mm,
comfortable. Like emotions, they don't always feel comfortable. And my God, the amount of clients, like as a psychologist, if I, no, I was going to say if I had $1 million, but that would mean I'd have a million clients and I, no. But, you know, the amount of clients that I've had that have come in and been like, okay, I just don't want to feel anxious anymore. How do I not do that? And I just sort of sit there and I would be like, so let me just be very clear with you. That's not going to happen. You are going to feel anxious in your life. You are going to feel sadness, grief, disappointment, rejection. And you're also going to feel joy, happiness, love,
Mhm,
contentment. But you can't pick and choose. If you want to feel these things, you need to feel them, the unpleasant ones as well. And the
mhm.
resignation is just like, oh, but I'm curious because you were talking about that stretching. I love that. That's so true. And that is when things do kind of come out of the woodwork and a lot, and that's when we do kind of retract back in. And I see this,
Mm,
like, it's funny because I'll have a lot of people, like, people book a discovery call with me and they're like, I'm in, I'm ready to work on my relationship with money because they have a little moment and then they start thinking about it and then they retract. And I find it so fascinating. Like, and I see this with my anxious therapy clients as well, you know, like, oh, I've been to therapy. I don't want to go back again because the nervous system goes and reverts back to what is familiar. It will do that. And
mhm,
that's why I think it's so important to bring it out into the conscious awareness because 95% of what we do is not in our conscious awareness. And I know, and I get what you were saying before, like around just do the fucking thing anyway. And I totally get that. And I really do. And I agree with you on some level, but I think for the differentiator is when you can't, even though you
mhm.
want to, then to me that's an indicator of okay, something more is going on here because
Bigger.
you're getting that piece where you're getting stuck. And um that being said, I'm curious because you've mentioned the avoidance, which I think is something that a lot of women will be able to relate to. Um, and it does, it's like this really big protector. And I see this so
Mhm,
much. Like, if I can just numb out, avoid, disconnect, go into that freeze response, then I don't have to connect. My body is safe. Like there's some sense of safety. As a kid,
mm,
it was a really good strategy, but then you become an adult and that same strategy is no longer as helpful.
mhm,
How have you kind of gotten to know that part of you and not just gotten to know that part, but become aware of when it's activated, um, develop strategies around that part and how, sorry, this is like a big question, but also how is that then being able to help you make more money in your business?
Oh my gosh, overcoming, you know, as much as they have so far, my avoidance pattern, just like literally probably the biggest breakthrough of my life and my business and my money, like massive, massive, massive. And the thing with your avoidance is she's so tricksy, and it gets really hard to, like, until you really learn it and become aware of it, like it is so good at making that option feel the safest, right? And like, even with, you know, when my avoidance would kick in, I actually thought for so long that it was such a good thing, because it was like I would be able to shut down these emotions and then just focus and do what needed to be done. Unfortunately, when I was in that state, almost like you were saying before, it's like we can't shut down just some emotions, we shut down every emotions. So when I was shutting down the fear, the doubt, the whatever, I was also shutting down the desire, the goals, the like what I wanted, what would light me up, that kind of thing. So it's like
Yeah.
the same way that my avoidance could save me out of a situation where I was afraid and I just needed to get something done, the same way that it would convince me that, like, you know, I wanted this big goal, but that goal's really uncomfy. So actually, let me put those feelings away and decide I don't want that big goal. No
Yep.
icky feelings if I just convince myself I don't want it, or it doesn't matter to me, or I don't care about it, or it's not a big deal, or whatever it is, right? So I never realized for so long how much that was making me dream smaller, put myself in smaller boxes, just run away from goals that I had, you know, like I saw that a lot in my money story. I also saw it a lot in my health story, which is so funny because I was like running gym and being PT and everything at the time, but I would often convince myself of things like, you know, I'm not competitive. I don't care about being in a competition, or I don't, you know, I don't care about having like the fittest, healthiest, perfect body, whatever. But it was actually just me like avoiding the discomfort of like how fucking hard it was sometimes to like eat the thing instead of just do what I, you know, go to the pub and
Eat a
eat
Palmer.
courses. Yeah, whatever it was that I wanted to do. Like that wasn't comfy, that was hard. And because I'd been avoidant for so long, like I didn't really know how to handle discomfort. Hadn't trained myself to handle that. And that's all it is. Like once you realize that's all it is, it's practicing just holding discomfort, holding the feeling, feeling the feeling, and it's just feelings. Like that's all it was. But I was so uncomfortable with literal feelings that
Yeah.
I would run from these goals that I had and convince myself, and it convinced myself I didn't care about them. So it didn't feel like I was losing anything, but I was just dampening everything in my life. So when this really all like came to a head for me, I went through a very big, disgusting year of a healing journey. And what I learned, like a skill that I have learned since then, is when I catch myself being avoidant about something, I have to create space for me to sit with that feeling. And it's like nowadays, I'm okay with it. Sometimes it's still gross. I'll be like, fuck me, I hate this fucking feeling. Like I'm not enjoying it at all. Like I would so love to run away or just shut this down or tell myself it doesn't matter or whatever. Like I still feel that now. But at that time, I was like, I long story short, had fucked up a bunch of stuff in my past business, and I was just avoiding, you know, blaming it on things outside of me, blah, blah, blah. And at that time, I literally had to go through this. I went through this one day, felt like just reckoning day for me. And I did things like, I remember this one day where I printed out the cancellations list from my gym, and I literally made myself sit there and look at them and just be so honest with myself about what the fuck I was looking at, right? Of like, and all the stories I'd been telling myself in my avoidance, which was like, you know, you're so good at this, and like everybody loves this gym, everybody wants to stay forever, no one ever leaves, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm looking at this cancellation list that is telling me the exact opposite, and that we're fucking up somewhere and we're letting people down and people aren't enjoying it. They're not sticking around, like literally all these things that I did not want to face or hear or feel. And I just sat in it. And it was so painful and so uncomfortable. And I just like bawled my eyes out, felt every feeling, like made myself say the words like this. I know this sounds so brutal, but like it's what I needed to do. Like say the words, like people aren't staying at your gym. People don't think this is the best place ever. People like, just these things that I could not admit to myself and I was just running so much from. And then that like, it's like I was so afraid of knowing all these things. And then literally as soon as I faced them, I just was able to pinpoint where the problems were and solve them and like make the business 100 times better and everything was fucking fine. But like actually facing it and holding it and being in it instead of running from these feelings was all I needed to do. But it was so hard to get myself to do it. But going through that experience, going through that day, like seeing it, saying those words to myself, admitting it all, like that, yeah, it's just that's all it took. But it was so obvious to me in that moment where I was like, that's all it is, Phoebe. You're not looking. You're like running from these things. You're avoiding these things so hard that are going to be helpful for you just because you think you can't handle the feeling. And look at you right now. Yes, you're bawling your eyes out. Yes, it fucking sucks. But tomorrow you're going to be back on your boss shit, doing what needs to be done, putting things in the right place, making adjustments, being resourceful. Like you can handle this. And that was what I needed to see for myself. It was almost like, we learn this avoidance as kids where we put shit away because we can't handle it, because we can't change it, because we can't do anything about it. And now I'm like, you're a fucking adult and you can do things about it. You can handle it. You can feel it. And I have a really cool story now of like, this is so much of what I teach people now is like all of our leadership, all of the scaling journey, like making more money. It's just your ability to hold the discomfort, hold the what ifs, hold the big goals, even when you don't fucking know how, even when it's not working, even when everything's falling apart. Like, can you stay in that vision, in that desire? Can you stay in it? And like most people really struggle to, they really can't.
They do.
And when I had my like in December, I had 150K sales month. And I'd set this goal. I was going to have 100K sales month. It was the 26th of December. And I was at like 30, 40K sales, 26th of December. I can tell you like everything in my body wanted to run away. I wanted to be like, so many stories that sounded like a great idea. They don't sound like fear to me. They're not like, oh my God, I'm so scared I might fail. They're stories like, Phoebe, it's Christmas. Just enjoy the holidays. You're camping right now. Like, you don't need to be posting on social media. Oh, like, let's just do it in January. No one's in buying mode right now. Like, we'll focus in January, right? Like, all these really good logical reasons why I should bail. And I was just catching myself and I was like, these are very interesting stories, Phoebe. And I just said, I was like, all this is, Phoebe, is you said you wanted 100K. All I want to see myself do right now is stay with that fucking goal, stay in that vision. If you fail, it'll suck, it'll hurt, it'll be embarrassing. Told everyone you're going to do it, didn't do it, it'll be shitty. Then what? You're going to get up January 1st. You're going to do the shit again anyway. It's going to be okay, right? Like all this is a feeling. This fear, this feeling that cannot hurt you. Like it actually can't. It's not going to light you on fire. It's not going to ruin your life. But that's what it feels like
it though, doesn't it?
And I sat there and I was like, I am going to hold this goal. And I could like, when we talk about lighting on fire, I felt like my body was on fire. Like the vibrations in my nervous system of like, this is so fucking unsafe. Like, we don't know if it's going to work. We don't know if it's going to work out. Might fail in front of everyone. Might be embarrassed. Might blah, blah, blah. Like all these things. And I just was like sitting there with this emotion and being like, it's just feeling like, and I can fucking feel it. I can handle it. And I just stayed in it. And I like, did some nervous system regulation to do a bit of running around and releasing and stuff because the energy was so intense. But it was like I just got to see it. I was like, whoa, like that's the feeling that we run so hard from. And I was like, I'm gonna be that person. I'm just gonna show myself I can stay here. And then I nearly forgot the best part of the story. That's 26th of December, only had like 30, 40K of sales. I held in this fucking energy. We did 100K of sales in like 5 days. I was like, I didn't change anything about my strategy, anything.
Mm,
It was just that I fucking stayed in it. And I was like, holy shit, like I've never had such a juicy piece of evidence. But like, I don't know if I can describe that feeling in my body, how badly I wanted to run and hide
mm,
and make the goal smaller and tell myself this story, it didn't matter. I'll do it
mm-hmm,
later. Don't worry about the
mm-hmm.
timeline, whatever shit, to just soothe myself in that moment, to not have to feel the feeling, but just staying in it, literally, like imagine if I didn't. How crazy is that? So cool.
It's I love that, and that's so true on so many levels, you know, and I see this all the time. And what you articulated so beautifully is the stories that
Hmm.
we tell ourselves that we don't even realize are the stories that we tell ourselves
They
because
sound so good.
they sound amazing. And I do it too, you know. And this is the thing, like, and I am so I want people to know this about me as well. Like, yeah, I'm a psychologist. Yeah, I'm a money coach. Yeah, I still have these fucking stories myself.
Hmm.
And I know that I have been to like my coaches who are like, Ellie, so have you noticed? And I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, what have
The
I not noticed?
story.
What story? Because they are so sneaky and they are so incredible at making
Keeping you
you,
safe.
yeah, that's exactly what they want to do. Your stories, your subconscious, your nervous system, it does not
Mm,
care about your financial goals. It does not care about you becoming wealthy. It does not care about anything other than, is this feeling okay in my body? And when we talk about feeling okay, like you were fine, you were camping, you were having a great time. But the money concept and the goal that you'd set, your body was like, oh, this is way too much to not
hmm.
even the money goal. It's not even so much about the money goal. It's about that sensation in the body. And
Hmm.
if that sensation in the body feels like it's just too icky, too overwhelming, too uncomfortable, you're right. We want to run from it. We want to not experience it. And we will do, our subconscious will do whatever it can to move us away from that feeling. And I actually love, like, one of my clients last year was talking about how she wanted to come and work with me. And she sent me an email and she was like, I'm in. And then the next day she was like, I'm out. And I was like,
As we do.
and I sent her an email. I'm like, okay, like what's actually going on? And she was like, no, I'm in again. I just like panicked. And I'm like, yeah, that's completely normal because your nervous system's doing its thing, you know. And I find it just really fascinating, like how our body will just try to do whatever it can to keep us safe. And but I
Mm,
also love that when we give ourselves new evidence to, and I talk about this a lot in terms of, like, I call it micro moments because, you know, if you think about it like interest, if you put money into a bank and it's accumulating interest, you don't put 10 bucks in and expect to have $1 million tomorrow.
hmm.
You put 10 bucks in, you keep putting little bits of money in over the course of a number of years, and eventually the interest accumulates. And it's the same with nervous system regulation and our subconscious. We have little micro moments where we do things a little bit differently. We take a breath, we pause before reacting, we give our body a shake, we go run around to release some of that energy so that we're not getting hooked in that story. So that instead of immediately getting hooked, we can build a bit of awareness and go, oh yeah, I know that story. Feels really logical, but I do know that that's my protection story,
Mm,
my avoidance
yeah.
story. And then when
Like
we,
that's like that story that you just told of that person being like, I'm in, and then I'm out, and then I'm in. It's like
yeah,
even just like the most powerful thing that you can do is just recognize when you're making a reactive decision. Like, is there a lot of emotion in you when you're
yeah,
making this decision? Like, all it has to be is that little pause. to see, you know, that was a major decision for that person's business. It's like, are we making major decisions for our business in that state? Like, that's not, like, to me, I'm always like, that's not us in our leadership, right? That's us in survival mode. So that's
Yeah.
not the mode that we want to be making moves in. So it's like how powerful just that pause is of just like, oh, there's a lot of emotion around me about this. Like, can I just give it 5 minutes? Can I take a breather? Can I go for the walk? Can I shake out a little bit and just see if that decision and feeling and everything is the same, or is there a little more for me to explore here?
That's exactly why I have a program. It's called Regulate to Riches, which is like a 28-day program that helps women to learn some of those regulation tools and skills, because
So
it's
important.
it is. And the thing is, like, particularly as women, I don't know about you, but I know for me, it wasn't something that I was overtly taught. I had a different experience where instead of avoidance, it was more so, I don't know, just this really heightened energy. Like my mum would just be like, ah, and then my anxiety would increase. Like I remember something about having a loose tooth. And oh my God, I thought I was going to die when I had a loose tooth because everyone around me went like crazy. And I'm like,
Bananas.
oh, so I didn't know how to bring myself down when I had big emotions. They all felt like too much. And so Regulate to Riches has been a program that I've put together because if we can't identify that we're in survival mode, if we can't identify the stories that we're starting to tell ourselves, if we don't have the tools to be able to take that pause, it becomes really, really hard to untangle and unravel ourselves from that. So, yeah, I love that. I really love it. And I love like hearing your story. Oh my gosh, there's so much more that I want to unpack, like, because I love it. And like, I feel like there's so many women who will like relate to a lot of the stuff. I mean, whether it's a parent using drugs, which is actually, it's interesting because I think that a lot of women in business, a lot of high achieving women do come from environments where there's air quote trauma. I'm a psychologist and I love and hate the word trauma because I think sometimes people go, oh, well, I haven't had trauma. Or they'll be like, yeah, I've had a bucket load of trauma. And I'm like, trauma just literally means that, you know, your nervous system flagged it as overwhelming. And we've all had that.
Had
So
moments.
we've all had that in various ways, shapes, and forms. But I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry, I've kind of lost my train of thought there.
It's very true. It's like I find, you know, I have play a lot in like attachment styles and stuff. I find that just so helpful to understand some of our behaviors and things. And it's like so many of the really highly successful people that we come across are very driven by these like conditioned forces, right? Like, and we find that where you could be wildly successful in a path that you never gave a shit about going down just because your anxiety was so high that you were just trying to prove yourself good enough, you know, or just trying to get the approval of whoever, or the other way where it's like our avoidance is
Yeah.
so strong that we're just putting, like, we haven't felt desire for 30 years. We've just been doing what we thought we should be doing or
Yeah.
running from a
Yeah.
different feeling or a different reality. And we can create so much like quote unquote success, but that's why so many women are in successful positions with
No
well,
satisfaction.
not just no satisfaction, but you know, like friggin' endometriosis, like
Yeah.
gut issues, health
Yeah.
issues, like everything that's like showing even deeper than that. So yeah, it's
100%.
definitely just, yeah, women in
Which all
business.
comes from
When
our
we talk about it.
nervous system, you know, and I think like
100%.
that's why I'm so like passionate about the nervous system. And I'm like, we cannot ignore this. We've got to stop ignoring it. And because, yeah, which I think is something like we could dive into further, but the mind, body, gut, there's so much interconnected there, which is, you know, beyond my skill set in terms of the depth of my knowledge around that. But I know that there's such, and I'm actually excited for like where the future's heading with that, because I think the more that we learn about
Talk
it,
about it. It's so interesting, isn't
I
it?
know,
And it's so such uncommon knowledge, which just is wild. Like I think, in our fields where we hang out, where women tend to be a lot more self-aware, we're doing more
Yeah.
research, things like that. But in the world outside of this, I speak to so many of my friends who are not in business, and sometimes they
Yeah.
talk about these things, and I'm like, are we surprised that you have all of these illnesses and situations going on? Like you're literally working a job you hate 24/7. You're doing this, you haven't taken a rest in like 12 months. Like there's just so many things that add up, and it's just not even on people's radars that like those two
I
things
know.
would be
It's
connected.
wild. It's so wild. It's so true. And yeah, again, why I do the work that I do because, nervous system important. And I really love and appreciate you sharing so much because, like I said, I really feel like people will get so much out of just understanding that it is possible to change, that it doesn't have to be that way forever. And
Mhm.
just because, and this was something I had to unlearn, just because there's a difficult childhood doesn't mean it has to continue with you forever. You do have more control than you think. But I want to ask, where can people go and find your spicy content on Instagram? I'm going to put all the details in the show notes for people to go have a little bit of a Phoebe stalk. But tell us a little bit more about where they can find you.
Yeah, come and find me. Definitely on Instagram is my home base. So Best
Mhm.
Life Phoebe on there. I'm sure that you'll get a link. Yeah, and I have a few juicy programs depending where you're at. We've got the Spicy Content Club if you just want to learn to really express yourself and have that conviction and confidence behind what you're putting out on the internet and actually make it, entertaining and fun and a good time instead of such a drag that content feels like for so many people. And then I have my business coaching programs as well. I've got group programs and one-to-one programs, just for those really big dreaming ladies who need a little bit of the structure and the strategy, with complete understanding and support for that, the nervous system side and the mindset side that is just so important as well.
Awesome. I'll pop that info in the show notes. But thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. And for the rest of you, I will see you all again next week. Until then, take care.
Bye.